JOB on 104.7 FM, also streaming live on the TuneIn app and in video on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. My name's Jim Diedlow. This is JED in America. As for the first half hour, first 20 minutes, I come outside of our radio studios in Hammond, Indiana. We just talk and tell you from a Midwestern perspective what in Sam Hill's going on in the world. And it's really not even a Midwestern perspective, it's just my perspective. And I've been gone for 3 days, so thank you to, let's see, Verley Suggs, and to Sam Michael, and to Rick Kubik. All three of them took a day as I went to New York City. Hey, thanks for beeping! It's a rainy beeping day. It's a beeping rainy day. And here comes another big truck. Let's see, let's just present this one. This looks like Love's. Big truck. Hey, let's talk about what's going on in the world. Here I am over the last 3 days. I go to New York City for a conference on streaming video, and at the same time I got to see my daughter, and I got another whole arm of the family now out in Long Island, as my sister lives there and she has 3 kids, and she married into a big Italian family, and we all got to go to my niece's confirmation, my niece Lisa, in a place called Northport, Long Island. And Ryan, can you go into my backpack over there and grab the New York Daily Times? It should be inside my backpack, and bring that out here. So I got to tell you that it was a switcheroo. As I went to New York City, Donald Trump got on a plane and he came all the way to Indiana. And it was a pretty important trip for both of us, to be honest with you. And I'll start with mine because I don't have the New York Daily Post with me yet. And that is that, right now many of you may be watching this on Facebook, either live or as a replay, right? That's kind of where our business has gone. And thank you. And so we're pretty ingrained in Facebook, and I really congratulate them on what they've developed, okay? But they're under fire right now. It doesn't matter. Their stock went down to like $1.50. It's up at $1.85 right now. By the way, another 179 or 180 up yesterday on the Dow, and it's up about 78 this morning here. At about 5:40, 5:42 here in Central Time along Indianapolis Boulevard. So things are going okay on the business side. But I went to the streaming video conference in New York City ostensibly because Ms. Connolly, I think it was Lisa Connolly, she gave the keynote address and she talked about Facebook Live. Now there's a backstory here, and that 2 years ago I went to the streaming video conference, and a guy was standing in a hallway, and he's like, "Hey man, why don't you come into mine?" You know, there's like 6 conferences at the same time, and I was heading to another one on latency. And, there's a pill for latency now, but they didn't have one 2 years ago. So I was going to go and study latency. And hey, what's going on, Lane? Back in town. So the guy says, "Hey, come on into my conference." And there's only like 10 people sitting in there. He goes, "Come on, you won't be disappointed." So I walked in. He was like recruiting people in the hallway, and I walked in, and ultimately, am I still on? I don't know. I can't tell. I lost my hearing for some reason. But it was a conference on Facebook Live and Twitter Live, Periscope. It was mostly Facebook Live. And I was like, wow, this is kind of neat. And I came back and we started up Facebook Live, and it's been history ever since. So I went to this conference to ask Lisa Connolly or another guy in another conference that was a little seminar that was scheduled, just some basic questions that I can't get answered because Facebook doesn't have a phone number. And there's a backstory there in that I did go on Facebook and look for a phone number, and I got one, and evidently it was some crooks out of some eastern country, sounded like India or Pakistan, and I almost got taken to the cleaners, and I don't know, there's no real way to contact with them and ask them questions about some of the video that we're doing. So I went all that way. Lisa Connolly came up and she made some announcements. Hey, what's up? She made some announcements about persistent streaming. In other words, like if we want, like Mayor McDermott's coming in here, right? And he streams on the WJOB page. Well, we also want to put his stream at the same exact time on his Go Hammond page or any other pages that he may want. Well, and pretty soon we're going to be able to do that. Hey, what are you doing? Everybody's out beeping. So anyways, she gave a great speech, but then unlike everybody else who has in the past, she's like, is there any questions out there? She left. She's a product manager for Facebook Live. So I go, no big deal. I'll ask the Facebook Live guy in a seminar. And I ran over to a seminar and he didn't show. So to me, it was basically saying that Facebook didn't want any interaction with people who might ask them questions about privacy or Russia or whatever it might be. And so it was kind of ironic, A, that I went all that way and they were not available to answer questions. And B, it was ironic that the company that says they're bringing people together more than ever just won't even make themselves available for questions. But hey, you know what? You got to accept that. So I was in New York City and learned a whole bunch more about what we can do to up our game here locally, and you'll notice some changes over the summer. All right. So in the meantime, what goes on with Facebook? I don't know why it's front page of USA Today, front page of every paper, just about every national paper. We finally figured out what kind of the Facebook ads were that may have helped influence the election for Donald Trump. And according to USA Today, Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee released thousands of Russian Facebook ads on Thursday, offering the public its first in-depth look at messages meant to heighten tensions among Americans during and after the 2016 presidential election. So this is what I get from reading this, is they started out just kind of buying bulk Facebook messages, and then they were able to target. If you said coal miner or you said steel worker as your occupation, they were targeting you, and they knew kind of what person that would vote for Trump. They had certain characteristics, and if you exhibited any of those, you got shown the anti-Hillary or other ads that they had. I think they had 300 type of ads. So not a good time for Facebook. I could see why they would have kind of dodged us at the conference, but it's how it is. All right, so I go to New York City, right? And I got to tell you that there is they don't like Trump. It's almost kind of weird, is that Trump gets his strength right along this road here on US 41, although this is a pretty Democratic area. It's a 70% Democrat, but there's still a lot of people that voted for Trump up here. And he gets it just a little bit further south. Here it is raining right here. And if you go 40 miles south, it's going to be sunny and 80. It's like a line, a political and weather line today. And if you go 30 miles east, it starts getting it's in Trump country. And that's where Donald Trump went yesterday. He went to Kokomo, Indiana, or Elkhart, Indiana. And he had a lot to say. Hey, what's up? One of the things that he had to talk about was a guy by the name of Mike Braun. Mike Braun is a businessman from downstate. I interviewed him. He bought a lot of commercials here on WJOB. And he has positioned himself as a huge Trump supporter. As a matter of fact, it was almost like who could out-Trump Trump in last week's primary election between Luke Messer, Todd Rokita, and Mike Braun. And Mike Braun comes at him with I'm the outsider, I'm like Donald Trump. And he said that yesterday. Now, do we have any clips of this, Jimmy? I can't see you. We do have clips. Anything of Trump we'll do from Elkhart. And Jimmy Mulaney is inside, and he's going to play a little bit of that for us right now. He's going to play a little bit of that for us. Turn it up.
This November, Indiana will face an important shift. You can sense
All right, I'm not hearing that, so how does that go for everybody else? Are they hearing it? All right, well, we're not ready quite yet, but one of the things that Trump had to do was he came into town to press for Mike Braun to take on Joe Donnelly. And Joe Donnelly is a Democratic senator here in Indiana, and he is pretty heavily targeted right now by the Republicans. And there's going to be massive money coming into the state of Indiana to unseat the Democrat Joe Donnelly. I remember I covered that election when Joe Donnelly beat Robert Murdoch or something Murdoch. Murdoch had it won. He was up 7, 8 points going into the general election. And I remember interviewing him right down here in St. John, Indiana, right kind of as bad news was coming out for him. And the bad news was that he had said something about rape, and he just turned that whole election upside down, and Donnelly kind of squeaked in there. And he's, Donnelly, I got to tell you, has kind of positioned himself the entire time. Whenever I interview him, once every couple of weeks maybe, and he positions himself as a guy who can work across the aisle. All right, let's hear Donald Trump from yesterday in Elkhart.
This November, Indiana will face an important choice. You can send a really incredible swamp person back to the Senate like Joe Donnelly, or you can send us Republicans like Mike Braun to drain the swamp.
All right, let's stop it there. That pretty much says it. See if you can get Mike Braun up there, too. And that was Donald Trump in Kokomo. He also had things to say about, I don't know, Korea and some other stuff. Let's see how the local paper carries it. It's right down the road here, about an hour and 15 minutes away. Embracing the role of party leader, President Donald Trump issued a stern warning Thursday that Democrats would disrupt the economic progress of his administration as he implored fellow Republicans to mobilize behind a slate of Indiana candidates. Trump painted a rosy picture of his presidency, pointing to low unemployment, booming job growth, and optimism under his watch. 2 days after Indiana wrapped up a diverse Republican primary, Trump praised the ticket and he of House and Senate candidates by name and predicted Democrats would dismantle his agenda if Nancy Pelosi became House Speaker. You have to work every day between now and November to elect more Republicans so that we can continue to make America great again. Make America great again. All right, here we go. Out of the Post-Tribune here. It's actually the AP that wrote this here locally. Chief among his targets, Indiana's Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly, who faces Republican businessman Mike Braun in one of the more competitive Senate campaigns. Trump branded Donnelly as Sleeping Joe, assailing him for opposing the president's signature tax cuts and the president's efforts to end the Affordable Care Act. All right, here's what Trump said of Donnelly. He said he would do whatever Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi tell him to do. Trump said he will say one thing in Elkhart and then support the radical liberal agenda. It never, ever fails. You know, I guess I'm kind of laughing at that because, you know, I've interviewed Joe Donnelly, and one of the things that I have interviewed him about was, it's like every time he comes in with a bill that he's put through or he's voted, you know, it's always co-sponsored by Republicans. And I've asked him, I said, well, you know, Senator Donnelly, with all due respect, I mean, you know, all this working across the aisle, and I mean, what is your, you know, what's going on here? It's like, well, you know, I want to be good for America, and I want to say that he was the third most or second most rated as rated as like the most viable to work across the aisle with Republicans. So this is just, it's not what I've seen, okay? I mean, he's not he's gotten a lot of criticism around here as being kind of a Republican, but according to Donald Trump, he's part of the radical liberal agenda, and he'll say one thing in Elkhart and then support the radical liberal agenda. You know what? This is real. I know that. It's real, but is it really real? I mean, I'm here to tell you, I interviewed, Donald Trump's son. I get it. I still have great hope for Donald Trump to do some good things in office. I've interviewed Mike Braun. I've interviewed Joe Donnelly a bunch of times. And I just don't see that as being genuine, that Joe Donnelly supports the radical liberal agenda. I do see as being genuine Mike Braun. He has been very direct about what he wanted to get done, and that is he wants to drain the swamp, and he wants to basically compared himself to Donald Trump yesterday right down the street here in Elkhart. Let's go with some more Donald Trump from Jimmy Mullaney right now. Let's hear it in Elkhart, Indiana. Chicka chicka boom boom. Look at my hunches. La mahanya. Ari. Din don din. Din don din. Frère Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous, à la maniakishka, mora mora hanchka, finya poof, finya poof. We don't have it. Jimmy can't get it up right now, and I mean that for the video. And we'll get that in just a second. So I'm going to walk out onto Indianapolis Boulevard. We've talked enough about the circus. We didn't get to talk about the circus of Michael Cohen and what exactly is going on there, as I was able to pick up a New York Daily Post yesterday. Din don din, din don din. The old man is sleeping, and here it is. Daily something or other. Daily News, sorry. Same thing. But man, do they go at Michael Cohen. They seem to have a little bit better take on what Cohen was up to. And they're saying that he took all sorts of money. He got $1.2 million from Novartis. He got 500 grand from AT&T, 200 from AT&T, 500 from Russian billionaire Viktor Vekselberg's Link business, and he also got it from Korea Aeronautics. Now, was he trying to sell access to the White House? Maybe, maybe not. I don't even know if that's illegal. But is that what you want a guy doing? I don't know where that's going to go. But the circus continues at the national level. Here it is. I got it right here. It says so in the New York Daily News. All right, guys, I'm Jim Delo hanging out on Indianapolis Boulevard. I'm back after 3 days in New York City at a streaming video conference. Learned a whole bunch. You know what? Number one of the things that I learned in all of this? I learned that 2 years ago I went to this conference. I didn't know anything about streaming video or, what we should be doing. We had been streaming video. We've basically been streaming video since 2010 in one way or another. And I really didn't know the actual growth of what was going to happen over the last 2 years. And most of that has been powered by Facebook Live. And I found myself in a number of the seminars, people asking questions of the panel. Sometimes they didn't know the answers. Different mixers, different protocols, what Facebook allows, this and that. And I guess what it really kind of came down to is that we're ahead of the game here. And we need to do some things to basically give the region a full, almost a TV network. And I have some ideas to wait. We're almost there now. But I had to close a few loops in some of the knowledge that I had before we spent some money. And we're ready to do that. And I got to congratulate you guys that are watching and watch us on a regular basis. I mean, we don't get millions of views without a village coming together basically to create a force where there was no force. So I want to thank everybody. But I also want to say, hey, let's go for the journey in the second half of 2018, and it's going to get even better. All right, guys, I'm Jim Delo. This has been JED in America. Just standing outside in Hammond, Indiana on Indianapolis Boulevard in my rain gear. As soon as I put it all on, it quit raining. Sponsored out here by the Ironworkers Local 395. They build stuff. I went to the hard hat outing on Saturday morning, and it was just a ton of union people, including Ronnie Ware and others of the ironworkers. They're trying to get out in the community and give back, and they're certainly doing that as part of the hard hat outing on Saturday. All right, guys, Jim Delo, AM 1230, WJOB 104.7 FM, the voice and face of the region. Click.
Under my administration, we're fighting against the lobbyists, the special interests, and the corrupt Washington politics. After years of rebuilding foreign countries, of which a lot of people partake in the cost of rebuilding those foreign countries, we are finally rebuilding our country. We fight to build their borders, but we don't fight and spend no money to build our borders. Figure that one out. We're fighting, and we're finally putting America first.